the other sort of, I think one of the criticism that is constant is that damage has occurred because of WikiLeaks. I can't find it yet. Do you have a reason?
Well, it's a rhetorical trick.
Okay.
So
you understand why I'm asking?
Yeah. There's
I'm trying to understand the case against your vision.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're sympathetic to it, so.
Up until collateral murder, we were a cause célèbre in the United States. Actually, we're still a cause célèbre, but it's in a smaller libertarian or left-wing or libertarian right-wing community now. But and across, according to Reuters, across 24 countries, we have over 3/4 support of the general population of 24 countries. It's the worst in the United States. So we have support over 40% of the population, which is pretty good actually, considering what's been happening. So as a result of embarrassing the US military and the diplomatic class, we have had a counterattack, and that counterattack is significant. This is a very significant power group, and it's a power group that is not just at the top of the White House. It's not just a few generals. Rather, it is all the people connected to and profiting from that system, and that's about a third of the US population. So all the way from Chelsea Clinton down to someone in the gutters of San Antonio whose brother is deployed in Iraq. There are 900,000 people in the United States with top secret security clearances at this moment. There are 2.5 million that have classified security clearances. If we go back over the past 20 years and ask how many people had security clearances, maybe it's, 15 million. If you then go and look at all their spouses and business partners and children, we're looking at something like 30% of the population of the United States is 1 degree removed from that way of living and that ideological structure and that patronage system. So it's quite difficult in the United States to say something that is against that system. And the New York Times has found to its peril when it tries to speak out against it. And so in its relationships with us, when you publish material, had to react very defensively in a way to someone outside the United I think even traditional US journalists think this. It is sickening to see a newspaper of any strength saying literally how pleased those words the White House was with its behaviour. So if we look at the attacks on us, they always talk about the words placed people at risk. But risk relative to what? Right now, we are at risk of a meteorite passing through the roof of this house and killing us all. That is a risk, it is true. But is it a proportionate risk? Is it a risk that is significant enough that is even worth speaking about? Well, the answer is no. Similarly with the word possibility. There's a possibility a meteorite could descend on us all in this moment, but it is not a probability. So these rhetorical tricks are often used by people who are making their argument in relation to security, that there is a risk of something, there is a possibility of something. What has to be done is people need to engage in a sort of intellectual defense against manipulation by rhetoric, by understanding that if someone mentions that there's a risk without saying the risk is higher than crossing the road, or the risk is twice that of being stung by a bee, then you must ignore it. Similarly with possibility versus probability.
Yeah, and I can do all of this in my head too. Are there examples where a positive outcome that can be directly traced to WikiLeaks in the political sphere that you would want to highlight? Something, a specific, tangible, positive outcome.
Well, the most significant one seems to be the Arab Spring.
And you would argue WikiLeaks was a clear information.
Well, Amnesty International did in its latest report, and Tunisian professors did. Because of my direct involvement, it would be unseemly for me to argue that directly. I'm not certain about directly. I am certain that we affected it and were deeply involved in it. I'm certain that we influenced it. And that is really something of great moment. Something I am certain about is that we changed the outcome of the Kenyan election in 2007. There's been many ministers whose scalps we've taken, and people being forced to resign, and so on. Those are concrete and clear actions, and one might argue that they're positive if you didn't like the guy, and you would argue that they're negative if you did like the guy. So I don't really want to mention those.
Yes. If I go back to your earlier argument that the effect on a single individual is not the actual goal. The actual effect is to change the system in some fundamental way, because you make the argument that these systems have become fiscalized. They're static, independent of any pressure. And so an example of a truly large influence would be a revolution, right?
Well, it's something that is... You can make many large influences without these sort of dichotomatic events. But the dichotomic events are easy to, binary events are easy to talk about, and it's sort of provable.
It's a marketing problem. You want to have a marketing story.
Yeah. So one party or another party wins the election, and it changed. And that's a very clear sort of outcome. There's a revolution. One group was in power, then another group's in power. It's a very clear change. I suspect the other changes that we have had, such as liberalisation of the publishing environment, I suspect is actually the most significant one that we've been involved in, and something we've pushed for many years. There's no way that what we did last year we could have done 4 years ago. It would not have been possible.
How come, technologically, or in terms of...
Technologically, it was all perfectly possible. The difference is a shift in status quo. WikiLeaks became the status quo. So, and that wasn't always so. During the first 2 years, we were battling for whether we were something that was acceptable to be on the internet or not. After 2 years, and especially after the Bank Julius Baer case, where we were involved in a big legal case in San Francisco. On the one hand, us; on the other hand, the largest private Swiss banking concern, Bank Julius Baer, that was trying to shut us down, which we conclusively won, and cost them their US IPO as a result. That sort of sent out a signal that there is a place in the world for a publisher like WikiLeaks. And then we started to cement that place as time went by. And now we have really cemented it, because we had a case where the Pentagon stood up in public and gave a 40, many times actually, but back in October, gave a 40-minute press conference with their spokesperson Jeff Morrell, saying that WikiLeaks must, and me personally, must destroy everything we had previously published, had been derived from the Pentagon, destroy everything we were going to publish, and cease dealing with US military whistleblowers. The precise phraseology used was return everything that we had ever published, return everything we were going to publish, and cease soliciting information from US military personnel or US government personnel. Or the Pentagon would compel us to do so. And when asked by a journalist at the press conference, what mechanisms do you have to compel them? The response was, well, look, this is the Pentagon. We're not concerned about the law. That's perhaps a matter for the Department of Justice or the Attorney General.
When you watched that, did you get the impression that there was just an unbelievable level of naivete or lack of understanding about the actual technology and technical aspects of this that would make that impossible?
I did, but then I later on developed a more sophisticated understanding of what was going on in that press
I
conference.
actually started out very unsophisticated.
So what was actually going on is this was a carefully, I mean, it seems ridiculous. Why would the Pentagon act like a victim? Why would they look so ridiculous and powerless? Why would they give a demand that they were not capable of fulfilling? It would make them look weak. It was a carefully constructed legal message designed to embroil us in the US Espionage Act. It was a notification, like you see in the newspapers. We demand that you do this. This is the type of information. It will cause grave harm to US national security. We make it a press conference so we can argue that all those WikiLeaks people have seen it. Then the next thing they publish, they will demonstrate intent. So despite the fact that they have been informed that is this, and this, they did it anyway, therefore they have an intent, because you can't accidentally commit espionage.
That's why they're concerned with the past, not just with the present. Because there has to be a pattern of practice, and as long as each instance is a fresh instance, then there is no pattern.
Yeah. But in saying no, which we did quickly, actually before we understood what the legal trap was, but in saying no, and then in relatively short order producing the Iraq war diaries, and it's one of the best things we've ever done,